Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Bab again. Make sure to check out BeneathEverything.com. That is BeneathEverything.com, the blog for new conversation in Black Dallas and beyond. Also, if you haven't already, check out Beneath Everything TV. That is the Instagram. Yo, join the conversation. Beneath Everything TV. Check out the Instagram. Also, please check out this shirt. Dope, I know. It's dope. Okay, this is a three-part video, and we will be talking about how young black people like myself, black millennials, should approach the Israeli-Palestine conflict or Israel in general. Where is Israel? Do you know where Israel is? I don't. But hopefully in one of these three videos you will find out where it is, and we can talk about it and how young black people like you and I, if you're young, should view the situation. So the first part of the video, I will read two articles for my ADHD babies. Don't fall asleep. But even if you aren't young, check out this video. Even if you aren't black, check out this video. I would love to hear everyone's input. This is a three-part video series. This is the first part. The first part, I will talk about the $38 billion that was given to Israel and the reparations that was also paid to the Holocaust victims. Second part, the backdrop of United States' relationship with Israel. How did Israel become so tight with America? How do we place Israel so high on the list of priorities? Okay. Most of you only know about it through the Bible. So here's another perspective. You know, we're going to go back in time a little bit. My third one will be about how we should view our relationship with Israel and view the Israeli-Palestine conflict overall. It's not talked a lot about in these elections, but it will be. I guarantee you it will be in November and October. So check it out. You know, we need to cast off old ways of thinking. So I'm pleading to all my black millennials to check this video out. All right, first article. This is in Reuters. This is written by Reuters. If you've already written the article or read the article, skip this part. So this is a Reuters article. U.S.-Israel signed $38 billion military aid package. Let's turn this way. U.S.-Israel signed $38 billion military aid package, all right? The United States will give Israel $38 billion in military assistance over the next decade, the largest such package in U.S. history, under a landmark agreement signed on Wednesday. The deal, whose details were reported by Reuters earlier, will allow Washington's chief Middle East ally to upgrade most of its fighter aircraft, improve its ground forces mobility, and strengthen its missile defense system, a senior U.S. official said. While the package constitutes the most U.S. military aid ever given to any country, it entails concessions by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, according to officials on both sides. Those include Israel's promise to not seek additional funds from Congress beyond what would be guaranteed annually in the new package, and to phase out a special arrangement that has allowed Israel to spend part of its U.S. aid on its own defense industry instead of American-made weapons. Nearly 10 months of drawn-out negotiations underscored continuing friction between President Barack Obama and Netanyahu over last year's U.S.-led nuclear deal with Israel's arch-foe Iran, an accord the Israeli leader opposed. The United States and Israel has also been at odds over the Palestinians. But the right-wing Netanyahu decided it would be best to forge a new arrangement with Obama, who leaves office in January, rather than hoping for better terms from the next U.S. administration, according to officials on both sides. A new pact now allows him to avoid uncertainties surrounding the next president, whether Democrat Hillary Clinton or Republican Donald Trump, hopefully neither, and to give Israel's defense establishment the ability to plan ahead. Obama aides wanted a new deal before his presidency ends, seeing it as an important part of his legacy. Remember that part. Republican critics accuse him of not being attentive enough to Israel's security, which the White House strongly denies, and of taking too hard of a line with Israeli leader. The $38 billion Memorandum of Understanding covers U.S. fiscal years 2019 to 2028 and succeeds the current $30 billion Memorandum of Understanding signed in 2007, which expires at the end of fiscal 2018. Prime Minister Netanyahu and I are confident, this is a beginning quote, Prime Minister Netanyahu and I are confident that the new MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, will make a significant contribution to Israel's security in what remains a dangerous neighborhood, end quote, Obama said in a written statement. The agreement was signed at the State Department by U.S. Undersecretary of State Thomas Shannon and by Jacob Nagel, acting head of Netanyahu's National Security Council. According to a White House fact sheet, the deal includes annual payments of $3.3 billion so-called foreign military financing, $500 million a year for Israeli missile defense funding, the first time this has been formally built into the aid pact, a phasing out of a special arrangement that for decades has allowed Israel to use 26.3% of its own U.S. aid on its own defense industry instead of American-made weapons. Elimination of a long-standing provision that has allowed Israel to use 13% of the aid to buy military fuel, and funding to allow Israel the, quote, lion's share, end quote, of its fighter aircraft, including its purchase of additional. The funding will allow Israel to update the lion's share of its fighter aircraft, including purchasing additional F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. Israel is scheduled to receive 33 F-35 aircraft, the first two of which will be reviewed or delivered in December. That is the end. All right, the second article is written by Washington Post. Uh-oh. Can y'all hear that? Oh, well, if you can't, you can read the article yourself. All right, this one is called U.S. Begins Paying Out Reparations from France to Holocaust Survivors and Their Heirs. Right. The State Department has paid or approved 90 claims for a total of $11 million in reparations from France to former World War II prisoners who were carried to Nazi death camps in French trains. The first French reparations paid to Holocaust living in the United States. The payments applied to Holocaust survivors who were deported from France to concentration camps on stifling trains operated by the state-owned French railway SNCF. So that's the name of the railway. SNCF, or if the survivors have died, to their spouses or heirs. It is a first French compensation to Holocaust survivors who settled in the United States, as well as Israel, Canada, and other countries that haven't had a reparations agreement with France. Whew. It is also the first World War II reparations program to include heirs considered to be, quote, standing in the shoes of people who died before receiving compensation for the atrocities they or their spouses endured, State Department officials said. I'm gonna just finish reading this. I'm not even gonna stop. I'm sorry. I'm reading about heirs getting reparations and people from other countries who are not even American citizens, but whatever. Beginning quote: "In many ways, this is belated justice for the worst crimes in history." End quote, said Stuart Eisenstadt, the State Department's special advisor for Holocaust issues. Beginning quote, "But it also underscores a long relationship with France," end quote. SNCF, the French railway company, was paid to transport 76,000 Jews and other prisoners, usually with no food and only a bucket for a toilet, to Nazi camps. All about 2,000 were killed. While the French government has paid more than $6 billion in Holocaust reparations since 1948, including to deportees, these payments previously covered only French citizens and those of 4 countries that had bilateral agreements with France. I don't remember the 4 countries at the moment. Reading on. More than 700 claims have been filed under a 2014 agreement between the United States and France, in which the French government pledged a total of $60 million for the deportations carried out by SNCF, officials said. In exchange, the U.S. government agreed to ask courts to dismiss any U.S. lawsuits against SNCF or the French government. U.S. Jewish groups and Asian Holocaust survivors have pushed for French reparations since at least 2000. Both through class action lawsuits and state and federal legislation. However, their cause gained political traction in 2010 when the survivors began protesting SNCF and a company in which holds a majority stake, Paris-based Keolis, as they pursued state and federal rail projects. Survivors said SNCF and Keolis shouldn't be awarded U.S. contracts supported by their tax dollars until they had been compensated. So Keolis is a Paris-based company. Well, SNCF is a French railway company, and the Paris company is Keolis, at least the one that it has a majority stake in. So far, Eisenstadt said 29 Holocaust deportees received $204,000 each, while 11 spouses of those who died in Nazi concentration camps or before 1948 are receiving $51,000 each. The spouses of Holocaust victims who died in or after 1948, the start of France's reparations for French citizens, will receive $750 for each year that survived. For each survivor that each year that survived, each year that the survivor lived after 1948. Because so many Holocaust survivors and their spouses have already died, Eisenstadt said, most of the claims received in the first round between November 2015 and May came from heirs, Heirs, and then state will receive what the deportee and their surviving spouse would have been eligible for, Eisenstadt said. Begin quote. We made the argument to the French government that they were standing in the shoes of people who have been eligible before they died, he said. The amount of the payments was determined based on how many people the U.S. government estimated would be eligible for the $60 million, the official said. SNCF officials have apologized to Holocaust victims, but have said the railways were forced to transport them after Nazi Germany occupied France and took control of the railroads in 1940. Pressure on French officials increased after U.S. Holocaust survivors and their families began protesting SNCF's pursuit of high-speed projects in California and Florida. Keolis, the company majority owned by SNCF, operates Virginia Railway Express commuter trains in Northern Virginia and the commuter rail line in Boston. Keolis lost out to a lower bidder on a contract to operate 2 Maryland commuter rail lines and wasn't successful as part of a team of companies that bid on the state's light rail Purple Line project. Eisenstadt said a team of 9 State Department staffers is reviewing additional 600 or so claims on Thursday and opened a second round of applications due January 20th. So if you missed the first round, you got another chance. He said a handful of claims were deemed ineligible, such as those on behalf of French nationals or Holocaust victims who were imprisoned in France but weren't deported on SNCF trains. So you had some French nationals who tried to file for reparations but were denied because they weren't on the actual train, even though they were deported to France by the Nazi Germany. If the second and perhaps a third round of applications doesn't use up the $60 million that the French government paid to the U.S. in November, those who have already received payments will receive more, he said. So if you missed the first round, they got more. All of the $60 million, as well as interest accrued on the fund, will be paid out, Eisenstadt said, noting that the State Department has waived quite considerable administrative cost. Eisenstadt said payments have been made to Americans and Israelis, as well as non-Jewish Canadian and American airmen who were deported after being caught behind enemy lines. While the U.S.-French settlement was intended to prevent future lawsuits, 3 Holocaust survivors filed a class action federal suit against SNCF in 2015, seeking reparations for people they said were left out of the bilateral agreement. The lawsuit is pending as a judge in Chicago considers SNCF's motion to dismiss the case. The U.S. government supported SNCF's motion. Harriet Taman, a New York lawyer representing what she says are more than 1,000 international Holocaust survivors and their families in the lawsuit, said the agreement provided no reparations for people who lost both parents in Nazi camps. Others aren't eligible, she said, because their parents weren't married when one of them was killed. Quote, we have clients who lost both parents, their brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, and they get nothing, end quote, Tamian said Thursday. Quote, this isn't justice, end quote. Other clients, she said, have been unable to provide what she said is unreasonable documentation that the State Department is requiring as a part of the application, including 1930s-era marriage licenses from Europe or proof of being an heir to a parent who died without a will. State Department officials said no claims have been rejected for lack of documentation. They said State Department reviewers are allowing claimants to use other records to bolster their case, including synagogue records, tax documents, and Social Security records. Quote, we're caretakers of this program, said Lisa Grosh, the State Department's legal advisor on the agreement. We need to make sure the money is going to the appropriate people. That is the end. All right, it got a little dark, but both articles has points to consider. We're going to go through the points to consider in the first one. This is Reuters. Um, it said those include Israel's promises not to seek additional funds from Congress beyond what would be guaranteed annually in the new package, and to phase out a special arrangement that has allowed Israel to spend part of its U.S. aid on its own defense industry instead of American-made weapons. So that basically means that in the 10-year agreement, 10-year, $38 billion, $3.8 billion a year, within that 10-year agreement is a clause that says, Israel, you have to promise to not seek additional funds within this 10-year contract. You have to promise, right? Because we read earlier that the prime minister wanted more. I think I read he wanted 4.5 billion. But it says, hey, y'all can't ask for any more money within this 10-year contract, which it doesn't matter because it's going to go up in 10 years from now. Everyone's going to forget, and it's going to go up in 10 years. And it just lets you know that it's a bipartisan idea. It's not Democrat versus Republican like many things are not. It's not a Democrat versus Republican issue. It's something that is very stagnant in both parties. That philosophy called Zionism is what it's called. But another point, bipartisan deal regardless of presidential party. Again, it doesn't matter. The article says it's a bipartisan deal down the road. It doesn't matter who is in part of the agreement will still happen. They're still going to get their billions of dollars, and everything's going to go well. Also, another agreement in the contract was to require Israel to use those funds on American-made weapons. Previously, Israel was using those funds. 26.3% of that aid that the U.S. gave to Israel is used on its own defense industry. So 26.3%, a quarter. I should have did the math, right? What's a quarter of 3.3 billion? Somebody help me out. It's like one is a third, so like 800,000 maybe, $900,000 maybe annually is used on is subsidized. So they have almost $1 billion subsidy. In addition, over a quarter of the aid is spent on Israeli military industry. That's $900 million boost every year into the Israeli economy. Almost $1 billion is boosted into their economy through foreign aid. So it's not as simple as we give them foreign aid. It's we give them foreign aid, and they use a third of that foreign aid to spend on their own industry. That's insane. And it also it uses 13% of that aid on the fuel for the vehicles. So again, it's over $1 billion that's being subsidized into the Israeli economy. So for corporate subsidy, corporate welfare, however you want to put it. Another point to take away from the Reuters article is, quote, United States will always be there for the state of Israel and the Israeli people, today, tomorrow, and generations to come. That wasn't in the article, but that's what Susan Rice said. She's a black woman, I guess if you call her black, who was the national security advisor. She said that today, tomorrow, and forever about a place that's not, you can't even point out on the map. And don't look to the back of your Bible to find it on the map either. That's cheap. Anyways, points to consider on the second article. Trust me, we're going to dive into all of this. The second article regarding the reparations. So the U.S. negotiated on behalf of French, Israeli, and Canadian and other countries' citizens and has paid out more than $6 billion, right? So basically the United States, the State Department is like an escrow. It's a holding account for the reparations for Holocaust victims from the country of France, right? So France is like, here's $6 billion. We're going to give y'all this money to, the people who were transported on the state-owned railway at the time Hitler was alive, You don't have to be from America, but America is still holding the money of other citizens' reparations. Think about that for 1 second. All right. Another point, U.S. Jewish groups and Asian Holocaust survivors have pushed for French reparations since 2000, both through class action lawsuits and state and federal legislation. So you have legislation both in the state and federal houses or Congresses that say, hey, these people deserve reparations for X reasons, right? And I remember reading an article, I might post it, that talks about more reparations given to older Holocaust survivors. Um, it's like $11 million or something that they've given out to older people. You know, it's really crazy, but they pushed for reparations since 2000. So they didn't wake up one day and say, hey, we need it. You know, this has been an ongoing fight. So, hey, heads up to them. And there's been many other groups also that's received grants from the White House for purposes of being a Holocaust survivor or being a heir of a Holocaust survivor or a spouse. It's crazy, man. Two more points to take away. They gained political traction in 2010 when survivors began protesting SNCF and the company in which holds a majority stake, Keolis, as they pursued federal rail projects. So they were protesting the contracts that these companies that transported their ancestors, they disrupting the dollars. They're not disrupting anything else. They disrupting the dollars because they know that money is what makes the world move. Survivor said that railways should not be awarded U.S. contracts supported by the dollars until they've been compensated. I just want to list the companies, some corporations who played a huge hand in the transatlantic slavery of African people. I'm just going to list them and just think about all the excuses you've heard in the past as to why Africans can't receive reparations. Just think about them. Think about some of the companies that are still in existence now. Think about some of the companies that were privately owned then. They weren't forced by the U.S. government to participate. I'm just going to list some, right? You got Aetna, the United States' largest health insurer, apologized for selling policies in the 1850s that reimbursed slave owners for financial losses when they enslaved Africans they owned. You have the Lehman Brothers, Chase Bank, and the New York Life, whose first 1,000 policies was on the life of slaves, and Aetna insured slave owners when they lost slaves. I'm not done yet. You have Norfolk Southern, which is a railroad company, who also financed the transportation of slaves across the country. So, you know, that's a railway company there. I don't know if y'all received reparations from them or if you know anybody, just let me know if y'all have. Another point, if a second or third round of applications don't use up the $60 million that the government gave to the U.S., they will redistribute out to people who have already received applications. So they're like, hey, even if it's only 5 of y'all who applied, we want to give y'all this $6 million. And if nobody else applies by January, hey, we'll give it out to y'all more. So again, think about all the excuses you've heard about, oh, we don't know who they are, or it's only 10 people. It's only 10 people who's alive who we going to give reparations to. How we going to divvy it up? How we going to redistribute it? How you know how much money you going to get? Just think about all the excuses, right? As well as the $16 million or the interest accrued on the fund will also be paid out. And the U.S. State Department has waived. They waived it. Eisenstadt said payments have been made to both Americans and Israelis, as well as non-Jewish Canadians and American airmen who were deported after being caught behind enemy lines. Again, non-American citizens getting reparations from French reparations. Others aren't eligible because their parents were not married when one of them was killed. So your parents didn't have to be married in order for you to receive reparations. You know, it's a fair game. Anybody? $5 Indians, hey, y'all come on too. We signing y'all up. Shit. State Department said no claims have been rejected for lack of documentation. They said that any claims that they have rejected has not been because of lack of documentation. So I'm gonna see y'all for the second video. I can't do it anymore.